Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to undertake a bit of a forensic digital autopsy together. We really want to peel back the layers and demystify the hidden AI architecture that's basically running just beneath our screens. Trust me, if you care at all about the future of digital creation, you are absolutely going to want to pay close attention to this one. Right, let's kick things off by dropping a truly staggering statistic, 58.5%. That is the percentage of US Google searches that now end in 0 clicks. Just think about that for a second. The majority of the time someone searches for something today, they never actually leave the search engine to visit an external website. It just ends right there. So, what is the actual cost of this new AI-driven zero-click internet? Well, it's a fundamental rewiring of our digital economics. We've watched the web violently shift from being this supportive partner that drives traffic out to independent creators into a system that frankly treats the entire internet as raw feedstock. AI overviews are just absorbing human-written content and serving it up directly, making sure the user stays entirely locked on their platform. And the ultimate stakes of this massive shift? They look exactly like this. $2 billion. That is the projected annual ad revenue loss for digital publishers right now. We are quite literally staring down the barrel of an extinction-level event for the independent websites, blogs, and creative outlets that rely on the open web just to keep the lights on. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with 1. The invention of authorship. 2. We'll cross the semiotic bridge. 3. Examine the wood chipper effect. 4. Look at the dead internet spiral. And finally, 5. Learn about becoming the sovereign pilot. Let's dive right into Section 1, the invention of authorship and the ancient scribe monopoly. We're going to kick this off by challenging pretty much everything you might assume about the history of writing. You know, we all kind of hold on to this romantic myth of the solitary genius, right? The writer just sitting alone, waiting for inspiration to strike. But historically, the whole concept of the author was actually a highly strategic invention by ancient Iraqi scribes. When the Sumerian language was dying out, these scribes started attaching specific names to texts to maintain institutional control. They were establishing a monopoly over knowledge. They weren't just writing, they were building this highly exclusive ecosystem of power. And if we look at a timeline, we can see how this architecture of text builds over the centuries. For a really long time, information flowed on the continuous Roman scroll, literally just a river of text. Then, to manage all that complexity, we chopped it up into the rigid 12th century paginated codex. Fast forward today, and tech pioneer Jaron Lanier describes our current era as a digital flattening. The internet just completely leveled the playing field, basically merging the reader and the writer into one massive two-way street of mass participation. Which brings us to Section 2, the semiotic bridge, mind versus machine. Here, we need to look at the exact interface where our beautifully messy human intuition literally collides with the freezing cold reality of the machine. Every single day, we navigate our devices using a graphical user interface, or GUI. But beneath the surface, that interface is a fragile, incredibly bloated illusion that demands massive compute power just to render things like drop shadows. Now contrast that with the command line interface, the CLI. It bypasses all that visual bloat to give you pure, lossless, unmediated digital truth. There's this visceral quote from legal scholar Eben Moglen that absolutely hits the nail on the head here. He says, "We get the chimpanzee hitting buttons, but we chat with each other. It isn't as good." Basically, by relying on pre-drawn graphical buttons just for a quick dopamine reward, we are fundamentally dumbing down our profound, nuanced capacity for language. We're trading complex human expression for pulling a colorful digital slot machine lever. So how do we actually communicate with the machine at the speed of thought? Well, we use the semiotic bridge. Think of your messy, highly associative human mind as OS alpha, and then think of the machine's physical hardware as absolute strict logic. Pure structured text, things like JSON or raw code, acts as the universal translation layer. It's the semiotic bridge that maps our fluid imagination directly into unyielding hardware execution. And that brings us to the stark, kind of amazing reality of modern computing. As the saying goes, we are quite literally tricking rocks into thinking using lightning and text. Seriously, there is no magic ghost in the machine. It is just explicit language commanding electrical currents on physical silicon substrates to execute our wildest imaginations. Let's move down to the bare metal in Section 3, the wood chipper effect and the modality gap. We're going to look at the microscopic hardware flaw actively causing the internet's current crisis. Right now, inside your computer, there is literally a turf war happening. On one side, you have the floating point unit, or what we'll call the FPU gambler. It's incredibly fast, but it uses secret silicon tables to essentially throw darts at a board and just guess the math. On the other side is the arithmetic logic unit, the ALU surveyor. It's slightly slower, but it deals strictly in absolute deterministic hardware truth. 1 + 1 is exactly 2 every single time. But here is the terrifying reality. 80 to 90% of modern AI compute cycles rely almost entirely on this FPU gambler. Our massive world-changing AI systems are built on a foundation of hardware-level approximations, not real arithmetic. They are, at their core, fundamentally just guessing the nearest answer. And when you rely on that gambler, you trigger what we call the wood chipper effect. First, exact, pristine data is ingested. Second, the FPU hardware approximates that complex math. And third, the original provenance is permanently destroyed. The hardware basically acts like a giant blender. You know exactly what data you tossed in, but there is absolutely zero way to reverse engineer that smoothie to get your exact original source back. The chain of title is just gone forever. So what happens when this microscopic hardware failure scales up to the entire web? That brings us to Section 4, the dead internet spiral, macroeconomic collapse. Scaling this up triggers the terrifying dead internet spiral. It goes like this. A human writes a brilliant original thought. The AI guesses the math, summarizes it, and totally steals the traffic. Because of that, the independent expert site is starved of revenue and dies. Now, the human source is gone, so the next generation of AI is mathematically forced to train on its own lossy, degraded summary. Ultimately, this feedback loop leads to a total semantic collapse. And you can clearly see the real-world fallout of this massive bottleneck. AI overviews are rapidly capturing all the growth. Meanwhile, independent sites, the exact places that used to form our thriving digital commons, are completely flatlining. The tech monopolies are literally eating their own food supply faster than it can be replenished. Okay, so how do we fix it? Let's move to Section 5, becoming the sovereign pilot and reclaiming authorship. We're going to explore the mathematically enforced solutions that actually empower creators to take back their digital sovereignty. To bypass the AI's chaotic guessing, developers are turning to these incredibly lightweight deterministic tools. Think of it as chopsticks design. You wouldn't use a massive, complex robotic arm just to pick up a piece of sushi, right? So instead of using bloated smart contracts, we can use simple web payment hooks like HTTP 402 and exact single-entry bookkeeping. This creates a flawless mathematical proof of ownership for autonomous agent commerce. And this architectural shift, it completely changes how we fund the internet. We can finally move away from the extractive casino VC model, which basically treats creators like disposable lottery tickets for short-term extraction. Instead, we can embrace the vineyard VC model. This is all about building sustainable, 10-year compounding infrastructure that mathematically protects the value of human creation, right down at the silicon level. But how do you defend this math in the real world? Well, we actually have a brand new legal shield for that, UCC Article 12. Under this new commercial law, actual technological control, meaning physically holding the cryptographic keys, legally leapfrogs traditional paper filing. Control beats filing. It creates legally invincible digital property, keeping the human founder firmly in the driver's seat. So as we rush headfirst into this crazy era of algorithmic governance and infinite AI generation, I want to leave you with a provocative question to ponder. Will you settle for a microchip's probabilistic best guess? Or will you step up as the sovereign pilot and demand a perfect mathematical blueprint? Your role is no longer just generating words, it's architecting true meaning. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll catch you next time.